Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and my project today is this. It's going to be a crafty advent calendar for me. So here's my thinking. If you don't want to purchase a crafty advent calendar in December, why not make your own? And fill it up with things out of your stash, maybe things you've never crafted with before, maybe those little extra freebies that you get with purchase. And then come December 1st, you'll have your very own advent calendar to craft from, and it won't cost you hardly anything. So my project, I'm starting off with these plastic, they're actually photo sleeves, so they are for 3 by 4 photos. And I think if I had to do it over again, maybe I would have chosen 4 by 6 sleeves. That way, if you wanted, you could actually fit a 4 by 6 stamp set in here as a fun crafty item to add to your DIY calendar and advent calendar. And so I've got 12 of those. I've got some paper leather here. This is cut to 6 3/4 tall by 3 1/4 wide. And I made this or cut it out of paper leather or fabric paper because I want it to be nice and sturdy. And this is tear resistant. So you can open and close this a ton of times and you don't have to worry about the spine and the fold where the covers open having that wear down or tear apart. And then for sturdiness, my covers are also going to be double layered. So heavyweight cardstock that's been cut to 6 3/4 tall by 5 1/2 wide, and then patterned paper the same size. And basically I chose 6 3/4 tall because it's just slightly taller than my plastic pages. It's about 1/4 inch taller. And then I plan to attach this so that I did round the corners of the covers just to have a slightly nicer finish. So I will make sure that the plastic corners of the sleeves doesn't poke out beyond that. And I will do the thermal cinch binding, but with my method of doing it, not the We Are Makers method. And I find that my adaptation of the flat lay method is my preferred way to do binding because it does help the covers and the pages to open a little bit more flatly. And that way your book can be a little bit more accessible, especially if it's a book that you are writing inside. In this case, these plastic sleeves, they are so bendy that it actually works out pretty okay. You don't really need to open it super flat, especially since I'm never going to have to actually write inside of these pages. But I still prefer this method of binding where I start off with some copy paper. This is digital color copy paper, which is 32-pound text weight. And I've cut the height of this to 6 3/4 inch tall, which is the same as our spine and the same as the covers. And I actually thought that this might be a good example of if you're making a larger notebook and you don't have a piece of copy paper that is wide enough to actually span the entire front cover and the entire back cover, but turns out this was actually enough. So what I'm going to do is basically I folded one edge, and that's going to be the beginning of our spine. And then I'm going to fold this to custom fit the number of plastic sleeves, which is 12, because for each sleeve I can actually hold, well, there's actually 4 pockets, but between those 4 pockets, I think I'll only hold 2 days worth. And then as I wrapped this paper around, I gave it a slight bend so that it marked where I needed to put the second fold. And that way, look how snug that is. So everything is nice and custom fitted to the book that I'm making. And I don't know that there's an exact name for the method of binding that I'm using. It's similar to the Oda binding, which is the flat lay binding, but it is slightly different, slightly modified. I kind of like this as, I think, what I'll call sort of the naked binding, where really I'm just binding the text block with a just additional paper, like a layer of paper surrounding my text block. So in this case, instead of a stack of like paper, watercolor paper, or copy paper for notebook pages, my text block is going to be these plastic sleeves. And I've actually never done glue binding on plastic, so I don't know if my plastic sleeves will melt at all, but I guess we'll find out. I'm pretty confident that the top portion won't melt, but I'm not so sure what happens at where the glue meets up with those plastic pages. So there's only one way to find out. So I'm gonna do this, and as you saw at the beginning, it worked out fine. So you know, if you want to try this, definitely you know, maybe do it at your own caution. And if you wanted, or you're worried about things melting and ruining the plate at the bottom of your thermal cinch, maybe line that with some parchment. That way, if anything gets melty and oozes out onto that plate, then it's at least easy cleanup. But basically at this stage, all I'm looking to do is really make sure that all of these pages are pressed up evenly as possible against that glue strip. And I want to clip everything in place. Take as long as you need to get this part right, because it's really going to be what holds all of these pages in. So you really want to make sure that each and every page, whether it's these plastic pages you're using or notebook pages or watercolor papers, you want all of that to, each individual page to make solid contact with that glue strip. And I'm going to use my plastic clips to keep everything securely together, push it down nice and even and firmly onto the bottom. At the bottom, that metal plate's the only thing that is heated up. So plastic that's above that plate, there's really not a lot of heat that's generated in the machine, and so you don't have to worry about the plastic clips, or even I think the plastic pages getting damaged from the heat. Okay, so now to our covers. This is our spine, that bit of fabric paper. So it measures 3 1/4 wide by 6 3/4 tall. And I scored at 1 1/4 inch and 1 1/2. Because I want this to overlap the front cover by 1 1/2 inches, but that 1/4 inch score line, that really is just so that our front cover can fold back nice and way open and nice and flat. And once the binding is done, your cinch is going to beep, and I'm gonna let that cool so that the glue that's still warm and still melty has a chance to cool down and harden, so that it really secures the plastic sleeves in place. You don't want to mess with it too early, because while the glue is still warm, it's possible you could be pulling out your pages or loosening up the pages. So so give it time to dry. It might take up to maybe 5 minutes is what We Are Makers says. But what I did was I just used it so that I can measure to fit where I need to score the line that wraps around to the back cover. And I like to do everything sort of custom fitted, because that way you know it's going to be just the right size. And I scored another 1/4 inch beyond that. So there's 2 score lines that will wrap around the spine. And then on the front cover and on the back cover, there's an extra 1/4 inch score line where this spine piece will fold like that. And that's what's going to enable us to open the notebook nice and flat. Now, with this, because the plastic pages, like I said, they're very floppy, so they're gonna have a natural tendency to fold nice and flat, anyways. But as you can see here, everything's nice and secure. So all I need to do now is assemble everything, put everything together. Now, with the cover pieces, I'm actually going to hide that bit of text paper, and so that is going to get attached to the front cover, which for me is pattern paper. And I've left it so that it's going to extend a little bit beyond the pages, and that helps to sort of protect the pages a little bit. And then I'm going to cover that text paper with another bit of cardstock. Now, that could have been pattern paper if I chose to use something that's actually pretty, but I opted instead to use heavyweight cardstock so that it actually gives it a little bit of extra structure and sturdiness, because I do plan to fill this with small stamp sets, small die sets, maybe some ephemera, things that crafty friends have sent to me, and maybe some things around my craft room that I haven't crafted with, and that way I can actually start using some of the things in my craft room. And so this might get actually kind of heavy, kind of bulky once all of those things are in. And so I want the covers to be nice and sturdy and be able to hold everything in place. So because that copy paper is the same height, I just really need to focus on lining up that top edge right now on the left side and the bottom edge on the right side. And I want to make sure that I can't see any of the plastic pages beyond this cover. So the cover piece I did intentionally make so that it's larger than those plastic pocket pages so that it does cover everything. And even though I used dry adhesive tape along all four edges of that cover piece, I'm going to use some a solvent-based glue. This is all-purpose glue by Collal. And the reason why I'm using a solvent-based glue is because it actually dries really hard and it adds some extra sturdiness to these cover pieces. Typically, when I use the all-purpose glue, it's because I'm maybe using thinner papers and I don't want to risk the papers warping, because it's solvent, it's not actually going to soak into your paper. And a water-based glue could potentially, just depending on how much water there is in that adhesive, it could create warping, especially in thinner paper that really can't contain or take a lot of water content. So generally, that's why I use solvent-based glue. But in this case, everything's kind of heavy. Like, this is heavyweight cardstock. The graphic 45 papers I'm using are pretty a nice heavyweight. So I am not using it for that purpose, but I still want some nice sturdiness added to this. So that's our inside cover in. And I just need to do the same thing with the outside cover. And what you'll notice is that the cover does not extend all the way to the spine or the edge of our notebook. And the reason for that is because to open the notebook nice and flat, I don't want to have to bend these covers, because then I would have to bend through 2 layers of cardstock and that bit of text weight paper, which really isn't a lot of thickness, but it's really, if you've ever had to fold multiple layers of cardstock, you'll notice that it's a lot stiffer and a lot harder to bend back. And so these cover pages, they're not going to bend at all. The only bend when we open our covers will be the spine. And that's why I put the extra score lines into the spine, because that's the piece that sort of trains the spine for where it will open. And that way, this is going to be free to open nice and easily. And since for the spine I used paper leather, it's still really secure, even though it's just a single layer of paper, but it's paper that's meant to really be very, very sturdy. I mean, it's the same stuff that you might find on the back of your jeans where they have the branding, and that stuff is really strong. You can wash it, you can crumple it, you can try to tear it with your hands, but it won't tear. You can cut through it just fine, but you can't really tear it by hand at all. And so that's what makes it really sturdy, and certainly sturdy enough to withstand opening and closing this advent calendar notebook. And I'm making this so that if I really like this idea, I actually might use this year after year. So I want to construct it in a way that I can use it this year, and then next year I can refill it with more crafty goodness and just use it year after year. So the only place where I want to put adhesive on the spine is along the two outer edges where it will get attached to the front and the back covers. So where it wraps around the spine, that's not going to get adhered to anything. And that way, the spine element can actually kind of float and go wherever it needs to go. And in fact, I'm actually going to leave a little bit of a gap where this wraps around the spine, so that, again, it just creates a little bit more room there, so that as you're opening the notebook and you're bending those pages open, that spine can kind of bend and flex wherever it needs to go in order for you to be able to open it as flat as you'd like. So again, I'm going to position this so that there's a little bit of a gap, just a small gap, and then wrap it around to the front. I did use some liquid adhesive so that it is nice and secured and nice and permanent. I don't want to just use my dry adhesive, but by putting dry adhesive all the way to the corner, it helps to just get edge, to edge adhesive all the way to that outer edge of this bit of paper leather. But it helps to kind of give you an instant hold as well, and that way you can continue to sort of work on your project and not be too worried about things slipping. But the liquid adhesive, that's going to be what actually makes it nice and permanent. Okay, so my notebook is done. All I have to do is just fill these pages. Now you can see how it folds there. See how it only folds where the paper leather is? And even though we have a lot of thickness in our covers and it's pretty substantial, it feels pretty secure, it's still really easy to open this notebook and open it really flat also. So let's start filling this up. I got this little 3x4 stamp set from Mommy Guide Inc. or Lala here on YouTube, and last year she did a craft getaway. It was an in-person crafty retreat, and I had the honor of teaching a class there, and I wasn't able to attend in person, but Lala still sent me a goodie bag of just swag and fun prizes and stuff like that. So it was really, really fun. And among the goodies that she sent me was this 3x4 stamp set from My Favorite Things. Then this pack of panda stickers is actually from Colleen. She sent me, oh my gosh, she was so generous and sent me so many goodies for my birthday and for Christmas, and I want to make sure that I craft with some of the awesome things that she sent, which includes this huge, really generous supply of panda stickers, and I think they're all different, which is going to make these really hard to craft with. So I've pulled out about half of the stack here, and I'm going to tuck these in. Now, these pages, there's actually on the front there's 2 pockets and on the back there's 2 pockets, but I'm actually going to treat each page as 2 days instead of 4 days. And that way I can sort of tuck in some extra goodies. So I hope you like the idea of maybe creating yourself your very own crafty advent calendar. If you don't generally like to buy one, then here's a way that you can sort of get in on all of that advent calendar fun come December 1st. So just shop your stash, and throughout the year, maybe tuck some things into this little notebook, and I'm going to really try to get all of this filled by June, and that way December 1st it'll be a nice little surprise, because I'm pretty sure I'll forget what all is in here by then. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye. Okay, I'm back. Here's some bonus footage. So I realized once I just had these couple of bits in that this is going to get super duper chunky. So I am going to make a bit of an elastic closure. And again, since I am trying to make this so that it lasts, and just on the event that I want to do this year after year, I am going to put some grommets into the back cover with my big bite here. And I do put a little label at the bottom for the most common size and type of setting. So the 3/16 eyelets or grommets I have, and as well I've got the 1/8 inch. And for this I'm going to use 1/8 inch grommets, and grommets are the ones that actually have that bit of washer, that little metal washer on the back, where I believe the distinction is this. I could be wrong, but I think eyelets don't have that washer. So once I punched my 1/8 inch hole, then I can assemble my grommet, and then the tricky part is holding on to that little washer as you position this in place. And because you have to get it right where the right where the setting pieces are lined up to set this eyelet or to set the grommet. And so got that in place, and then I just need to make a second one at the other end. You do want to make sure that you clamp down nice and firmly so that it's nice and secure, and this helps to protect these holes, because if you punch the hole and then you just put your elastic through it, there's going to be a lot of tension as as this notebook gets bulky, and a lot of stress gets put on that elastic band. So having a bit of metal surrounding that hole helps to prevent it from tearing or crushing. So I'm going to set these at the top and bottom. And then I've got this elastic band that is 2 millimeters in diameter, and I have these little barbed clips, and basically what they allow you to do is they allow you to kind of just crimp it onto the edge of your elastic band, and then this will kind of open, or once you crimp it on one end, the other end is still free to move, so that it sort of creates this T, and it helps to kind of keep it inside, but still flexible, and it can still move. And so that's all I did. It's a really simple closure, completely after the fact as well. So I thought I would keep that footage in case you wanted to see how to make that. Thanks for checking out my video. Hope you like this bonus footage, and for real this time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.